Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale with an old but good, great guest, Hazard, back on the channel. Haz, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well up until yesterday's video because I put out a video trying to mind my own business, not bothering anybody, and then about half of my comments, okay, a little exaggeration, but a lot of the comments had nothing to do with the most hated decks in Clash Royale. It instead had to do with bring Hazard on and cover, boom, this deck, the Spawner PEKKA deck that you were really on a roll with, I guess. Was it yesterday on your stream?
Yesterday, yeah, I was playing around with it a little bit and it was working out pretty well.
Yeah, man, and you actually appeared on TV Royale with this deck. You smoked somebody in the top 50. Yeah, you're doing work, man. So let's start out. We're gonna have a lot of fun today. We're gonna do a live match. We're gonna do play-by-play on a couple replays. But let's first start out with talking about this deck because it is a unique deck. It's not necessarily. I don't think it fits into any archetype 100%. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of give us the rundown here and maybe take us through the cards and maybe give a sentence or two about each card and what their role within the deck is.
Well, obviously it's not your average deck, right? You've got both spawners. You don't really have a win condition. Normally you have either a miner, like a big tower attacking troop, but really you don't have that. We got just a bunch of defensive cards and a bunch of cards that kind of remind me, at least, of the old spawner decks when the game first came out in 2016, where you had the Barb Hut and the Goblin Hut. This time it's a little bit faster cycle. You've got the Furnace, you've got the Goblin Hut, and you can really, in the beginning of the game, you can cycle your huts. You can defend those quick cycle decks like Hog Rider and Logbait, and then once it gets into double elixir, if they go on, say, a big push, normally you can end up counter pushing and just overwhelming them with those huts and winning the game.
All right, so what's the P.E.K.K.A.'s role in this deck besides just to stop the tank?
Well, really, it is the big meat shield of the deck. It's going to be that thing that is going to get to the tower eventually if your huts or cannon cart do not. It's going to be that thing where it's going to take out their big tank, and it's going to have a lot of hit points, and it's going to end up being like a giant, because with those huts and stuff, with that cannon cart as well, they're very good at taking out those smaller units that are going to normally distract the P.E.K.K.A. So a lot of the time the P.E.K.K.A. is actually going to get the tower and do the finishing blow.
Okay, so you're playing this deck almost like a super defensive spawner type deck, and then a pseudo beatdown deck behind the P.E.K.K.A. Is that kind of accurate, or?
Yeah, that's kind of accurate. It's not actually that defensive. You can give up a little bit of damage early on to get maybe an elixir lead, maybe get a hut down or two. But yeah, it is normally pretty defensive, and then kind of like your typical beatdown deck.
Okay, cool, man. Well, why don't you hop into a match, if it's cool with you, and we'll spectate. Maybe you can give us a little walkthrough on what's going on.
Sounds good.
Let me know when you're in. I want to make sure my iPad isn't bugged. Okay, you're in.
Yep, I'm in. All right.
All right, man. Well, yeah, start off with, like, early game and starting plays with this deck.
All right, so right now in my hand, I've got both huts, and I have the poison and the arrows. I'm going to play my Furnace. Normally I like playing the Furnace first. It's a little bit cheaper, and I play it 3 tiles away at the bridge first, just in case they have Hog Rider. I want to make sure that they can't bypass it. I'm going to use the Ice Spirit tank for those elite barbs, and I'm going to arrow onto the minion horde. Pretty standard stuff right here, just protecting my hut. And he looks like he has a pretty expensive deck. Obviously, he's the elite barbs. Pretty strange, but my P.E.K.K.A. is going to be able to take them out for a big counter push later in the game. So I'm just going to get my other hut down in the same lane, try to get some early chip damage. He does use an Inferno, but unlike
Dude,
a giant
playing
deck.
a classic challenge, Haz?
No, this is the grand challenge. This is the grand challenge. No, I don't even know what's going on here.
It's all right though, because the rest of the replays will all be against like top 100 players. But I just wanted to kind of get into your head during an actual match. So why did you drop off that P.E.K.K.A. instead of just cycling to another hut? Like, why did you decide to do that?
Well, it does cycle a little bit slowly, and he did waste his Inferno, which is probably going to be his big tank user. I'm actually going to drop an Ice Spirit at the bridge to tank for that Inferno just a little bit more. Maybe it'll come back around and tank at the end. And as you guys saw there, the Fire Spirits did do a good bit of damage, but the Inferno actually just lives with a sliver of HP. So maybe a slight misplay going that aggressive with the P.E.K.K.A. Although there's not really many cards I can cycle to get to many huts. I could have played maybe an Ewus in the back, but that might have given him a spell value because my Furnace was there. I could have done the similar thing with the cannon card there, and the cannon card's actually going to lock on and do a ton of damage after defending against those E-barbs. So yeah, I'm just really cycling huts at this point. Not really much going on.
Nothing much going on indeed. So is that what you normally want to do, is just basically defend and get maybe 2 huts on the board early game? Is that like kind of your goal, or?
Well, not necessarily get 2 huts down early game. I mean, if that happens, obviously it's great. It's very beneficial. But you don't want to have like play 1 hut after another, because most of the time they can take out one of your huts and then go offensive. And you really always want to have a hut available for you on defense, because you don't really want to overcommit, especially early with a PEKKA on defense.
Okay, let me ask you this: talk about sending the hut in one lane, the same lane, 2 huts, or the furnace and the hut, versus like 1 in each lane, and what hut? Let's say you have 1 tower low on HP, and they're going after your opposite tower. Talk a little bit about hut placement strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
It's like a bunch of questions I threw at you in one sentence.
Normally, I like to play both huts in the same lane. It just provides a lot of pressure. But if it does cause for it, say they have log bait or like a Goblin Barrel hog deck or something, then I might want to split lane, have the furnace in the lane that has the Goblin Barrels coming out at most, and maybe have the Goblin Hut in the lane that I have more damage on, so maybe I can get some damage advantage or keep up with the damage advantage that I already had at that point. But it really is just subjective for matchups.
Okay, let's go ahead and review one of these matchups against somebody who's not playing Elite Barbarians at you in a Grand Challenge. So let's start with this. Okay, I hate the mortar decks. I hate mortar decks because I suck at defending against them. So let's start with the mortar matchup here. I'm going to pause. Actually, I'll show you the deck that his opponent's playing. It's the Hog Mortar deck. And you guys know, if you saw my video 2 days ago from when you're watching this, that this is like my #1 hated deck.
Most annoying.
Yeah, it's the worst. I suck as is, but especially against this deck, I feel like it's like an auto loss. So I need some sort of a formula to win against this deck. Before I press the play button, just tell me really quickly, no matter what deck you're playing against this matchup, this deck, because I hate it so much, what are you trying to do against this deck? I know that's like a really objective question, but you know, like what are you trying to? How do you deal with this deck?
Normally against this deck, what I try to do is, against this deck, I like playing big, heavy beatdown decks, like maybe a giant beatdown, maybe a golem. In this case, it ends up being a PEKKA hut deck, but I really try to, defend kind of solidly a little bit, not give up too much damage in single elixir. Then in double elixir, maybe let their hog get to a tower once or twice, but really build up a big push opposite lane, and then maybe support that with a furnace or a baby dragon, or something that does splash damage, because most of this deck has a lot of splash damage cards, and it can't really take out those big tanks without those high DPS splash damage cards. So if you can take them out and maybe get to the tower, it will normally end up with you winning the game.
Okay, good advice. Good answer to an awful question, man. Yeah. All right, I'm going to press play in 3, 2, 1, go.
Got it.
All right, so again, both the huts in your starting hand. So like you said in the other matchup, you're always going to go furnace in this situation?
Yeah, unless I know what deck they have, I'm always going to really go furnace in this situation. He does actually start with the hog rider at the bridge, so I'm able to get a furnace and Ewis down on that. Not give up too much damage on my furnace. You normally want to keep those alive, keep the pressure up, especially early game, or else they're just going to be able to outcycle you and get a lot of damage.
So now that you don't know what deck he has just yet, I imagine.
Nope, no clue.
But you will in a second.
I know he has a hog cycle deck, but here he goes with the mortar. Just going to cannon card at the bridge, take that out easily. Also defending my hut. Going to arrow the minion horde, I believe. Maybe not.
Why do you think the hut is good now?
I don't know. It just really seems to be doing well in the meta. A lot of decks like Golem Rocket, Golem Zap. There's the Mega Knight deck that only runs Zap now. This deck I'm against is running just Zap and arrows. So there's not as much poison as there used to be in some metas, so maybe that's why the huts are good. Also, I feel like less cards like Princess aren't as popular now that Logbait's been nerfed, and other cards that do a lot of splash damage aren't really as popular, so it really allows the huts to get a lot of value.
So back to this matchup here, now that you know what he's playing, what's going to be, like, how has your mindset changed going into the second half of this battle?
I'm really just trying to get the biggest push I can possible, because I can't win the game by just chipping him out with my huts. That'll end up just being a draw, and he might even be able to win if I let him cycle back to hogs over and over and over again. But I'm just going to try and keep getting as much huts as possible, try to make him use a lot of elixir on defense, just giving me positive elixir trades basically with these huts, and then using that to build a huge push to win the game.
Okay, and is your huge push going to be behind the P.E.K.K.A?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
So there I play the P.E.K.K.A in the back.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I mean by letting the Hog get to the tower and letting him overcommit a little bit at the bridge. The Hog is going to get a hit. I am going to use an Ice Spirit just so it doesn't get too much damage. But as you can see, I basically have a free P.E.K.K.A going down this left lane with the Furnace behind it that can help clean up some of the splash troops. So I am going to get a cannon cart here behind the Golem as well. Going to poison onto the bats. Or not the Golem, the P.E.K.K.A. And the Fire Spirits are going to come in, help out a little bit, and the Cannon Cart does actually lock onto the tower. So this is what I mean by that big push. And the Cannon Cart, of course, is going to get one more hit. I'm just going to keep furnacing again, keeping up that pressure so he doesn't get a big push opposite lane.
Yeah, that was a pretty monster push there. And is that how you, when you talked about having a big push, you know, when you were explaining the deck initially, is that usually kind of how it goes down?
Yeah, that's usually kind of how it goes down. And then once you get that big push going with the P.E.K.K.A, obviously in front tanking, you're really just going to want to be able to poison them out. Keep up that pressure, of course, with the Hut so they can't spam opposite lane. And then really just poison and cannon cart at the bridge, and hopefully that will finish them off.
What do you find to be the most difficult matchup with this deck, would you say?
Definitely something like Log Bait. Log Bait is obviously very hard to deck. It does have arrows and it does have the Huts, but normally they can rocket the Huts, at least one of them, so you can't really play one of them behind your tower. So you either have to put them together and have them rocket both of your Huts, or put one behind the tower and just take a lot of damage. And also most of the time they can outcycle your arrows, and you really have to be good with your E-Wiz placements, but it's a pretty hard matchup.
Okay. Well, good job in that match. They barely, I mean, even though it took you a while to get that damage in, they didn't get too much damage to your tower. So this deck, again, like, if you play it kind of patiently early on, it seems like you can have a lot of success.
Yep.
This next replay here is against a crazy deck, man. It is a Golem, Mega Knight, Hunter, Night Witch, Royal Ghost deck. This is like my worst nightmare of a deck. So I can't wait to see how you handle this one.
Oh yeah, no, this one was
We should have started out with this one. This looks pretty. Kudos to all my viewers who stayed till the last replay here. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play. Because like just having P.E.K.K.A, obviously we all know this now, isn't enough to counter a Golem deck by itself. So yeah, just kind of walk us through here. Again, you have kind of a, I guess this would be an ideal starting hand for you.
Yeah, this is a pretty ideal starting hand. I'm going to start off with that Furnace. He did actually play a pretty early Golem, which normally you don't want to do, but of course he has that Ghost, which is going to be able to clean up most pushes of mine if I go on to push. But I'm just going to P.E.K.K.A in the back, you know, start it off kind of slow, get some some Furnace chip damage in the right lane, and just kind of defend here.
Yeah, and this is obviously not like a punish deck. Is there ever a time that you would punish your opponent? It doesn't seem like there would be, right? Would there?
Sometimes you can P.E.K.K.A in the back if they have a giant deck, and then they'll go giant the bridge, and you can pull you can actually pull the giant to your P.E.K.K.A with a Hut or something, but that's really the only punish you can do. Maybe like a cannon card at the bridge if they Golem in the back, which I think I end up doing in this match actually.
Oh, okay.
But there's not really that many punishing cards.
Okay. In the E-Wiz, we haven't really talked about it at all. I guess it's the only legendary in the deck, so really quickly, if you had to sub in something for him, what would it be? Definitely
be like a Musketeer or Mega Minion, something that just does pretty good area control, not too much elixir, of course, kind of range damage, just a kind of cycle card that does some, of course, damage to air, because this deck doesn't really have much air counters other than the Huts, and of course the E-Wiz.
Okay. And E-Wiz himself is just primarily a defensive card, also dealing with like Inferno Dragons or whatever behind the P.E.K.K.A.
Yeah, no, it can also help a lot with your counter pushes at the end of the game. If they have especially like an Inferno Dragon or some smaller troops as well, it can jump right on them and take them out pretty easily.
Nice placement there on the E-Wiz.
Thanks, Ash.
No problem. Hey, what do you think of Hunter? Do you think it's underwhelming card, or you like him, or?
He was one of my favorite cards going into the update when it came out. I really like him. He's not that strong right now, but he does fit in some decks. Like he fits in some giant beatdown decks, giant minor poison. He does well as just like a kind of anti-hog deck that really doesn't have to commit very much elixir for. But I don't know, maybe it's a little underwhelming HP wise. Fireball Zap takes it out. Poison really basically takes it out. So it's not, I don't know, that strong, but it's fairly good.
Okay, so here comes like what could be, you know, a really decisive push by your opponent. and you're able to actually shut it down pretty decently here. What did you do on this push, on this defense, that you didn't do on the other defenses?
Well, I poisoned and arrowed, so that way it would kill the hunter and the what was it, the mega minion. And I really just I don't know, I had that E was there as well, so the golem wouldn't get that much damage on the tower. And there, of course, I did cannon cart in the right lane, which got a lot of damage once I knew he didn't have golem to tank it and go in a big counter push.
Why did you drop the P.E.K.K.A at the bridge there, the second P.E.K.K.A?
He did drop a Mega Knight there. I could have probably dropped it in the back. It would have probably gotten a little more counter push value, but I wasn't really too worried about it because I knew I only had to get a few more cannon carts hits in the left lane, and if you tried to go for a big push or just tried to defend my P.E.K.K.A in the left lane, I was going to be able to punish in the right lane.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, you pulled off the victory, and this is a really cool deck to watch. I can't wait to go play it, man. Do you think this does well on ladder as well as challenges, or does it do better on either or?
Maybe it does a little bit better on ladder because people aren't going to be able to react to you overwhelming as well. And also, if you're in a kind of rough matchup, you can normally draw. I get a lot of draws with this deck, as some people might have seen on my stream yesterday.
So you shouldn't be afraid to play for a draw if you're using this deck, then?
No, not at all. It's kind of like
get,
Expo in that sense. Yeah. Okay. Like, it's not worth losing a game by playing a P.E.K.K.A at the bridge because most of the time they're going to be able to shut it down if it's going to be a draw scenario.
Yeah, and do you think okay, so playing for a draw, not play super aggressively. Any other like common mistakes with this deck?
I don't know. I haven't really seen the deck played too much. I guess one common mistake I make is I get too aggressive with my pumps a little early, and then I'm caught with kind of no elixir. So definitely space out your pump placements. Your spawner placements. Yeah, I don't know why I keep saying pump.
Nah, it's okay.
But yeah, just always have one for defense, especially if they have a hog rider or something like that, or a giant. They can always giant at the bridge if you get too aggressive. But yeah, that's really it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on the channel and explaining this deck to us. It's always so much more valuable than just seeing you on TV Royale to actually have you here explaining it. You were obviously streaming this yesterday. Are you back up and streaming on a regular basis right now, or?
Well, I streamed the last 4 days in a row, but I'm gonna see how long that lasts. I'm gonna obviously try to keep it going. I've been enjoying it a lot, so yeah, I think I'm gonna be back up and running.
Awesome, man. Well, looking forward to actually tuning in now. I think you stream a little bit, like, as I'm leaving the office, you start streaming oftentimes. But look forward to tuning in. And all you guys watching in should definitely go check out Hazard's stream on Twitch. The link will be below. Hazard, any final shout-outs, last words, anything like that, man?
I don't know. Shout out to my friends in the Shekit server and all that. Shout out to Nova for always, helping out and stuff like that. But, yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. Always one of my favorite guests, man. You have a really, really awesome way of explaining things that I think resonates with a lot of people, so keep with it, man.
All right.
All right, guys, that is going to do it. Huge shout out to The Troy, my YouTube sponsor of the day. Thank you, The Troy. And thank you, everybody, for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, whatever you're doing out there. I want to thank you for doing it. Huge shout out to Bren Chong, my YouTube sponsor. Check out his information in the description below. Make sure you check out Hazard's as well. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, take care, guys.